So it is now exactly 7:03 in my watch. And it's time to welcome you all to this fourth session of Prison Insights 21, an event organized by APAC Portugal and Instituto Miguel Van Gils. My name is Mariana Soares David, and I am a dispute resolution attorney and a certified mediator and mediation advocate. And I will be hosting today's session. Before I introduce our speaker, please allow me just to leave two practical informations. First, although the session will be conducted in English, if you prefer to hear it in Portuguese, just select the World Globe button in the bottom right corner of your screen. And second, the session will be exactly 1 hour long, so ending at 8:03 p.m. But it will begin with a 45-minute talk followed by 15 minutes of Q&As. And for that purpose, I would invite you to, even during the session, write down your questions in the Q&A box, also located at the bottom of your screen, and I will pose them at the end to our speaker. So the question for today's session is whether or not customized service for inmates is a real deal. And to answer this question, we are truly fortunate to have here Jan van Gils. I hope to have pronounced this correctly again, Jan. And
thank you very much, Mariana.
Before I give the floor to you, just a brief presentation. Jan is currently the CEO of Exodus Nederland, a Dutch non-profit organization that for more than 30 years has been providing multidisciplinary support and guidance to prisoners, ex-prisoners, and respective families. I understand that nowadays it is actually the largest Dutch aftercare organization. Jan is graduated in both social work and management. He has a demonstrated history of working in the non-profit organization management industry, and his collaboration with Exodus started in 2014, hence 7 years ago. He's very passionate about his work, and having met with him before in presentation for this session, I'm certain that this will be a very refreshing testimony for us all, and that this 1 hour session will fly by. So once again, good afternoon, Jan.
Thank you very much, Mariana.
We are honestly delighted to have you here and to be able to learn from your experience in Exodus. And without further ado, because people are here really to listen to you, even before we get into details, perhaps I would start by asking you to explain us what Exodus does and what are the so-called Exodus houses.
Yes, first I want to thank you very much for your beautiful introduction, and I hope that I can live to the expectations. You're correct. I'm since 2014. I'm CEO of Exodus Netherlands, and I'm proud to be part of the Exodus family abroad. Exodus is started more than 40 years ago by the initiative of just one person. And now we have an organization of more than 300 professionals and 1,700 volunteers. So it's grew a little bit. We have at this moment 10 houses. We just last week we bought 2 new ones as well, so we are still expanding. And what we do is at the end of the prison sentence of the incarcerated people, we have a period from approximately 8 to 10 months that they live in a community in our houses, and we try to support them to make the new steps into the society. We do that in 10 houses. We call them the mother houses because they are the big houses where 15 to 20 people live. It's 24/7 support, supervision from professionals, and next to that we have several dozens of halfway houses, exit houses, and maybe we can speak there a little bit later about that. And so we try to face them step by step from prison in the new place in society.
And you also provide outpatient counseling, if I understood it correctly, right?
Sorry?
You also provide outpatient counseling. So
yeah.
Some sort of supervision after people leave one of those houses.
Yes, after the period of 8 to 10 months, it depends. We have a follow-up by professionals for a few months. It can I must say we want not really say when after 6 months it's over when they need it. It can go on, and further on we have our volunteers who will stay whatever it needs and how long it needs.
And what sort of professionals do you hire for these services? Is there any sort of specific education, background, or personal skills you look for?
Yeah, we have most of them are just social workers. You know, it's the bachelor level social workers. I think approximately 80% of our workers, professionals, are social workers. Next to that, we have psychologists, we have criminologists, and that's where I'm very proud of. We have old inmates who are also hired as professionals because they know the peer group very, very well, and they understand sometimes a little bit more than the professionals. You know, it's in group, and I think it's an obligation to them to offer them the chances that we want the society to give them. So we also have to give them as well, and their contribution to our work is enormous, and I'm very grateful that some of them will help us with our work.
It is really interesting to include ex-prisoners. Do they need to have been in an Exodus houses or not?
No.
Okay.
No. That's not the case. We have some of them, I must say, but the most are not old members or participants of Exodus.
Okay. And when hiring new staff, is there something that you usually ask to confirm if that person fits these Exodus values and principles?
Yes, there is. I think it's very important to have people with a certain perspective of the society. You know, you have to not only educated in theory at school, academy, university, but you have to have a mindset, you know, a specific look on society as well, what you want. We are, a long time ago, we are founded by a Christian reverend. And I think that's part of our DNA as well, and still. And we care for people, we care for each other. And one of the questions we always ask, what do you think, which offenders' behavior do you think you can have? If you have made different choices in life, where you stand now, can you try to think about somebody who went left when you went right? You know, I think that's very important.
And well, what is the answer you expect? No, what is the answer that you don't expect for that question?
I must say that I will be honest about that. I will be honest about everything, but you know, it's that somebody who can't understand that there are situations in life that you make a choice, that you make an action, what leads to imprisonment. That leads to something that you have to replace yourself thinking, what would I do? And if you say I can't think of anything, then we have a pretty hard talk.
So you wouldn't choose that person?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay. I noticed that all around your website, and which, by the way, is www.exodus.nl, the term prisoner, inmates, or incarcerated seems to be avoided and replaced by participant. Is this intentional?
Yes, that's intentional. We are not a prison. We don't have prison guards. We don't have lock on the door, you know. We have rules, we have strict rules, and they have to keep them about, but they are on a journey for the next step. They came out of the prison, and they are participants. There are not inmates, but there are they're living in our houses in the community together, and it's the next step from prison to the society, to outside. So no prisoners, no.
So as soon as they enter an Exodus house, they lose this, well, so to say, prison label.
Certainly, yes,
Okay.
of course,
Yeah.
yes.
And do you have any idea approximately how many participants does Exodus guide per year?
Yes, I know it's very, very well. Yeah, if you can, approximately it's about 550 to 600 a year.
Okay.
In total.
A huge number.
And I must say, not everybody succeeds. I must be honest about that as well. It looks easy when you come out of prison. Yeah, you go in an Exodus house. There is no prison guard. There is no lock on the door. But it's also difficult. You know, you have to make your own decisions. Do I stay? Do I go away? Do I keep myself to the rules in Exodus house? Sometimes they choose to go back to prison because it's harder to achieve the goals in Exodus house than stay in prison.
It was something you mentioned when we last spoke, that it is not, well, it's not easy to live a normal life when you didn't have probably a normal background.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned, and I think myself, I'm 40 years in this kind of work, and in justice and working with addicts. I think one of the most difficult things there is to live a normal life, what we call a normal life. You know, it ain't easy if you don't used to a normal life. And one of the things that everybody asks from them is to live a normal life, like like the neighbor, like anywhere else. And when you didn't have the basic, you know, the safety from a family, the basic education, the values, then it's rather difficult to live a normal life, because we have a certain image of a normal life. And that isn't the normal life for a lot of other people, you know. Financially, housing, working, education, a different kind of friendship, but a very important kind of friendship. That's their group. And we always say that you leave them, you have to find new friends, you have to find a new environment in society, go to whatever. But it's very hard, and you have to well, not lead them. I think that's a very important thing. You don't have to lead them, but you have to support them. And what I told you then, and I told you now again, sometimes you have to do it again and again and again and again. And we from Exodus, we don't give up. We have rules, and when you break the rules, one of the risks is that you go back to prison. But if you want to go back after a while, it's always possible. We never gave up, and that's one of the reasons I think is from the success from Exodus, but also one of the DNAs from the professionals, the volunteers of Exodus.
Yeah, so probably in many cases it won't mean to go back to a normal life. It's to learn how to build a normal life from scratch, right?
Yeah, that's again, Mariana, that's very difficult. We all know that the things like work, income, house. I don't know how it's in Portugal, but in Holland it's majorly difficult to get a house from yourself. It's almost impossible. For example, my own daughter is waiting for 16 years in Amsterdam for a house. I'm lucky that I can buy an apartment for her, but I know I'm one of the lucky few. So she's one of the lucky few, but most of them have to wait and live long in with their parents, from couch from one friend to another friend, outside. it's difficult. And if you don't have a place where you can come to rest, where you feel safe and secure, then it's difficult to say, to accept that other people say, "Fun, come on, be normal, like us, go to work." We have to support them, and they fail. There are failures at some times. That's what I call it's phases, and it's okay to fail, because that's not the end of it. After a while, we are. I think really we open arms welcome you. We'll come back and try again.
And what about the financing of these houses? Who pays for these houses and the related expenses?
Yeah, approximately 80% of our incomes comes from the Department of Justice. We are a private organization, an NGO, but private, and the other 20% come for city councils. They pay from for the if the example it's longer than 8 or 10 months, the Department of Justice just stop paying, and then we have to go to city council and try to find some money there. And if they don't want, we have people who donate money every year. Again, we're very, very, very proud of a lot of people in Holland who donate private donation, €5 till 10,000, 15,000 euro. And then we have as we call volunteer placing, and then we pay it ourselves.
Okay, but despite this financing mostly by the state, do you have many restrictions in what you do by the state, or do you have some freedom in the way you develop your activity?
I think after many years, we have a little bit of freedom. I must say, the people who are in Exodus, they are legally in prison. So they have, there are all rules. We are working together with probation officers, the probation office in Holland, and there are, well, they can't use drugs, they can't use alcohol. They have to, you have to listen to us, to the program. And then if they don't, we need to report them. That's an obligation. We need to report to justice, and that's come by the probation office. And that's one of the it's a balance. It's a balance between our methodology and to just the sentence.
Sure, and to maintain also some the safety and all of it. Well, do you know if this is a more or less expensive to the states and consequently to taxpayers, I assume, when compared to a regular prison?
Well, it's a lot cheaper. The daily cost is cheaper, much cheaper, and I think it's also cheap and economic profit. Because I think we have proof. We have every few years we have done a study of relapse, and then we can at the figures we can see that more or less 5, 6, 7, 8. It's depending on the period. Less relapse. So that's also cheap for the society, It's when they're going back to prison after half a year, or they're going back after 2 years, or they don't go back after 2 years. That's also economic.
That seems really a troubling number, a troubling figure for me. The 8%. So only less percent of the participants. Well, only less. People don't really go back to jail. Only in 8%. So you don't reduce the repetition of crime in more than 8%. Is that it? I was expecting a higher rate.
No, and I'm very proud of 8%. I can tell you that. For example, the most of the sentence in Holland is around. The average is 3 months of jail, of sentence in jail. The people who are coming to Exodus have a sentence of more than 2, 3, 4 years and more, 8, 9 years. It's another group. It's a different group. It's a selection of a group. If you can see it in offender behavior, it's how do you say, heavier? You know, it's a different group, and you don't have the idea of the dream of thinking that it's easy what we are doing. It ain't easy, you know. It ain't easy for them as well, you know. They have to take their own responsibilities. They have to. We talked about chances, about getting chances in life, choices in life, backgrounds. How do you bring? What is your education? What's your background? You know, and those people have a long way to go. And if you then see that in a period of years, you're talking about a reduction of 8%, 7-8%, it's various. I think it's huge, really. It's huge. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it.
Especially because, from what I understood, if you compare your numbers with the numbers of high crimes in prisons, probably the rate would be higher. Correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So now, could you give us like a broad idea of how these Exodus houses look like and where they are usually situated, in more isolated or urban areas, for instance?
Yeah, the situation from the Exodus houses is mostly in the center of the cities. We have old, great, beautiful houses, I must say, because we need 15 to 20 rooms. So, you know, it's almost urban villas that we have. We owned a lot of them in a few years because they were given us by people, donated by people or by church. So we have a lot of houses
and why do you prefer urban areas rather than isolated?
Well, I think it's very important because that's the place where the people who come to Exodus houses after Exodus period of the program in Exodus, they have to come back into the surrounding. You know, you can buy or rent a beautiful house somewhere in the countryside. You know, relax. No problem. No, how do you say that? Well, a city has something that you also have to be afraid of. You know, it's seduce you. But it's the real world, and we try to give them in our program in the real world, not in what I say some far away. After 10 months, they have to go back, and then they go by train or bus or coach, and then they come again in the city for the first time. You know, they have to learn to live in the life and the surrounding and the city where they will live for the next period of time.
Yeah, also to get used to the community. Do you accept any sort of participants, irrespective of the crime they committed, even, well, or at least do you feel some sort of particular resistance from neighbors regarding people that committed certain types of crime that we usually perceive, at least, as more violent?
I understand the question, and it's a question we always get, but I must say mostly not. Okay. Always when we have a new house and a new surrounding, a new neighborhood, we have questions. We are the people in the neighborhoods are afraid. They ask the same question that you say, Mariana, and they are afraid of what's happening with their neighborhood. You know, can I go outside after 10 o'clock in the evening? What will it mean for our place, our safety? And I understand that, because they really don't know what's happening in the block of houses next to them. But we try to give information in front of them, months in front of them. We have gatherings around. We have one of the things we can do, because we are also have participants in volunteer groups or neighbors from all other houses. So we ask them to come to the new location, to talk with the people, and they can assure them, more or less assure them, because they have to use it, that it's rather safe. We don't have any problem. I must say, I'm rather glad about it. We don't have any problem with the neighborhood. We don't, and the neighborhood doesn't have any problem with us, you know, because we have strict rules. It's nothing that in the evening or the night the people is surrounding the houses, drinking and yelling, and or there is nothing of that at all. And what we try to do is we try to take the participants and let them do some community work in the neighborhood, you know, let them know them, let them see them. It's I must say it's no problem at all. It's no problem at all.
So you take all types of offenders, regardless of the crime.
We take all kinds of offenders. There's one difficult group, that's the sex offenders. Okay. Because it's in general it's complicated when you are a sex offender and you made part of a community. In prison, it's no luxury, I can tell you, but also in Exodus houses, it brings a lot of tension, because everybody is talking about their own offenses and their own sentence. But if there's someone who is recognized as a sex offender, it's very, very difficult. We used to have a special house where we are only sex offenders. We have to close it because we didn't get participants enough, and you have to make a sort of exploitation for at the end of the year. And I'm very, very sorry that we have to close that. And I'm at this moment there are talks with two mayors, city mayors, if we can try to achieve another one of those houses, special houses. Sex offenders it's a difficult group, I must say, yeah. But for the rest, everybody. Okay.
But do you try to split people within your houses, or do you jointly group them by age, by sex, for instance, or by the type of crime? I understand that you take in both men and women.
Correct. We don't have houses for the youth. We don't have houses for only men. We have one house in Holland for women with children, because they need a different environment. They need safety, and that's the only exception. And in the other houses we have women and men, young and old. Of course, most of them are men.
Okay. And what about this specific methodology you developed, the Your Strength methodology? Why did you, if I understand it correctly, you started without this technology, and then in 2015, if I'm not wrong, you then developed this methodology. Why did you feel the need to develop a new approach, and what would you say to be the main differences between this and the usual reintegration approach in prisoners?
I must specify something. We have this kind of methodology. We built it up in the 90s of the last century. Okay. It's not new into 2015. Yeah. Okay. When I came here, we had to we want to make sure that our methodology is based on practice, but also on theory, you know, education, background. And I have worked a lot of university, and I think it's very important to bring those two worlds together. And in 2015, it was not my idea, but that's the moment that I came. So it's we have we want to write it down. You learn it. In the past time, it was, you know, when you were a little bit older, you know, the social casework, you know, social work, behaviorism. But we have in all those years we had our own method, and we tried to write it down, and we asked the university in Nijmegen, city in the east of Holland, to help us with that, and they added something, and in these periods we have to put it all together. You know, we have 40 years of experience, of practice, and it came together, and it's rather good. Now we have real training, we have education, so we brought it to a higher level, and not only flat practice and good behavior or good practice, but also it's in every house is the same now, you know.
And then what is it? What is this new technology?
I think we call it your strength. Yeah. And maybe people are acquainted with that kind of method. You have your strength. It's mean that we think that the participant has a form of self-determination, you know, and that they have possibilities, and they have to make their own choices based on their possibilities and their qualities in life. You know, they used that they were confronted with things they can't do, and they have to adjust that. And we ask them to, what can you do? You know, and in togetherness with our way of supporting them, not leading them, but supporting them, and make it realistic. You know, everybody wants to be a millionaire in 2 weeks. That's not different from our participants. You know, we all have a period of time in our life that we thought, well, we will become a millionaire. You know, that we can do that, but it's not realistic. So I always say we don't open the door for you, but we learn to use the key, and the key is already in your hand. And I think that is a very important way of supporting them and not leading them. Yes, I think that's one of the most important things that we have.
Yeah. I can really relate to that, to being, to that self-determination and to the empowerment significance, because while being a mediator, I also noticed that the success and the effectiveness of mediation highly depends on the fact that the solution is chosen by the parties themselves. So yeah. I assume that the same occurs in this context. Participants' involvement and empowerment should motivate them and increase the chances of success, right?
Yeah, that's their own strength and aspirations. You know, that's very important. And mediation, it's what you say about it. It's also one thing we have embraced in our work. Mediation is very important. We have one of the things they have to do is take responsibility for the behavior, and responsibility means restore what they've broken. You know, mediation with and contact with the victim. It's very important. So we that's one of the a great goal also in our program, to restore to not only the victim but to society, to your own family,
Yeah.
And mediation is one of the things that's very helpful about that.
So you look mostly at the present and future based on the goals they want to achieve, but you don't neglect the past.
No, I think it's part of healing. You know, it's healing of the individual. It is healing of the victim. It's healing from society. I think that is very, very important. You know, we are looking forward, but we don't forget the past. And they have to recognize what they've done. You know, if you don't explore why that's happening and what it means for your your victim, your personal life, but also for your family, for society in broad, then I think it's rather difficult to go forward. Yeah. You have to be accountability. You know, you have to be accountable for what you do, and then we have to get the next step is enable them to go to the future. Yeah. But I'm sure we don't have to neglect what they've done. It's one very important thing.
I've seen one of the questionnaires you ask the participants to fill in when they come, and it is actually structured in a really good way. You split it by topics, and well, I would like just to highlight these two remarks because they really puzzled me. Someone said, some participant wrote that I know from my parents that I'm a nice guy if I don't do drugs. I want to know who I am without drugs and to get to know myself. So he's somehow recognizing that he doesn't know himself, but people say he's a nice guy. And then he ends by saying that I now know what I want. I'm not used to talk about that because no one ever asked, not even my parents. And this really surprised me that he was questioned about his intentions in life for the first time.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we highlighted in the beginning of our talk is that what's normal, you know, for us it's normal to talk about your behavior, talk about things like who am I, what can I do. I recognize that for some people it's the first time they talk about these things. They always when you grow up and nobody asks how you feel, you know, nobody asks what do you like, what do you want, what can you do, what do you want from me, you have to it's I call it a social environment, you know, where you live in, and your position is in relation with your surrounding. And I noticed that sometimes these questions will ask for the first time to somebody, never ever ask somebody from what do you want, how do you feel, what do you need, and what do you want from me?
Yeah. And how would you say that this methodology impacts on the daily routine of participants? Is there a rigid routine? Do you establish it? Is it tailor-made?
It's tailor-made. I can say it is tailor-made, but we have some group activities, of course, for everybody. We have to talk about their criminal behavior. They have to talk about who they are. That's in group. They have to. Well, it's a small society, you know. That where I think it's very important not only to have the program just for one person, but they have to live in a micro society as well, and they have to learn to talk to each other. They have to learn to cope with problems with each other, and that's in the program as well. So we had groups meetings. They're not volunteer, I can say you. They have to go to them. But we try to in the second phase, we try to do this after a few weeks. We try to accompany them to a normal life as possible. So we try to find work, you know, it's very important. A lot of the people of our participants aren't used to work, and not for a long time. Because it's difficult to have a boss who says, the boss you around to say what you have to do. For us, it is normal, but for them not. So that's difficult. They have to learn that. So we try to make it as normal as possible.
Do they participate, for instance, in the house chores? And the tasks you usually do, like cooking or cleaning or something else?
Yeah, they have to clean their own room. They have to clean the community rooms. They have to buy their own food. We give them a specific amount of money, so they have to. Well, that's the week money, you know, and they have to do. They cook for the group, and it's relations, of course, and they clean. They are responsible for their rooms and for everything. And it's also an obligation. They have to do that. You know, you can't say that I don't want that. I work all day, because when you're at home, you have to clean your own room. You have to clean your house. You have to pay your taxes. You have to know what's money worth. You know,
the groceries.
Some guys are used to do a gig in a weekend and go home with 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 euro. Well, that's not normal. Well, let's be honest about it. There's not a lot of people who earn that in a month by just working, and the value of money is something they have to learn. And so we try to help them with that and say, well, you know, this is your money for this week. You have to cook for 15 men, buy your groceries. Maybe dessert.
I think I recall that you, last time we spoke, you mentioned that they even don't feel comfortable while doing groceries because they have they've forgotten how to use money, how to pay for things.
They have no idea, in general. There's are different, but in general they have no idea what's a bread or milk or groceries in whole, what it costs. They have 100 euro. They go to the shop and they give it. They load everything in, and they don't understand that at the end of the week they don't have money and they don't have groceries, but they still have to eat. And the value of money, the costs of normal things like food and drink and cleaning stuff, you know, that's all what you have to do. And then they'll learn to recognize that when you earn 2,500 euro a month, you have to look after your money. You know, you have to pay your rent, you have to pay your grocery, you have to make your insurance and all that kind of things. And they're not used to that. So they have to learn it, and sometimes they can't understand. I sometimes when I'm in the houses, I'm asking the people, what do you think I'm earning? You know, and I must say, you don't have to feel sorry for me. I earn good money, but then I ask them, what do you think? And they well, wow, 400,000 euro. Would you have to have a big car, a big house, holiday, whatever you need? And they think that I'm paying big bucks, you know. And I'm not complaining, but I don't earn 400 euro, 1,000 euro a month. I must say, they can't expect that a lot of people have to go around with 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 with a whole family.
Sure, yeah. So now I had plenty other questions to pose you, but now it's time to look for our Q&A. And
it's already so?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I would keep talking with you for hours, but unfortunately our time is limited. So the first question would be, is there a kind of preparative process in prison to work on the right mindset for the transition to Exodus?
Yeah. there are special officers in the prison who are from the beginning. They are trying to select people, trying to motivate people. It's different in not every prison has the same regime, you know, not everyone, but there are special officers in the prison who try to make preparations for a place like Exodus or somewhere else, or directly to home. And the probation officers are working inside the prison as well since 1 year. They used to do it and they were outplaced, but now they are going back in. Our own professionals are going into the prison, volunteers go into the prison. We have, we try in broad to make preparation for selection for Exodus, or if they don't need it or they can't have it, because we have 600 places in a year and there are I think 30,000 inmates a year who come out to leave the prison and go to the society. So we have just a small group. They do our best. I must say, certainly in the last few years there is a different approach inside the prison. There's more attention to prepare them for freedom.
And knowing that there are no guards in Exodus houses, is safety also an issue?
No, not really. No, not really. We have our incidents, of course. There are fights and aggression, but that's no problem. Well, as I told you, our doors are not unlocked. They are unlocked. We have down prison guards we don't handcuff. We are just professionals. We try to motivate people. We try to support people. We have strict rules. Again, we have strict rules. You have to appoint you to the rules. If you don't have the rules, you go back. They know that. And sometimes there is aggression, of course. But I must say it's not that much. It's they know where they are going for. They know what they have to lose. No, not much. No, okay. Luckily not.
Well, considering that we have around 150 people in the audience today with multiple backgrounds and even decision makers, but I would ask you, based on your personal and professional experience, do you think that this model can expand to other countries like Portugal, or is this, the success of this approach is too related to the Northern Europe country?
I think it's a difficult question for me to answer, because I don't know exactly the system in Portugal. Okay. I think it can be done. 2 years ago, we have made 2 transition houses in Belgium. And I must say, Belgium is a Northern European country, but there's a difference between North Belgium and South Belgium, and it's a different culture, and that's. But it's maybe the culture is different, so you have to do it on your own way. You know, you know what works and what doesn't work. But I'm pretty sure in Belgium it's a success. I'm pretty sure it can be in Portugal. It can be in Spain and Italy as well. It's something you have to do in the community. You have to do it together. I think one of the main things is that you have to be. Well, it's possible in the system, but you have to have a group of people who started from Department of Justice, major social workers, the university, probation office, and bring them together and learn from our mistakes, you know, and I'm pretty sure it works. We work in Bonaire and Caribbean islands as well, and I can assure that's a little bit more south than Holland, and more south than Portugal. But you have to adjust at the system, you have to adjust at the persons and the participant. But that's why you have to work with professionals who know the culture, who are the culture. And of course, that will be different in every country. But the system of transition houses or exodus houses, you call it, I'm convinced that it's can be contributed to the society in Portugal as well.
Okay, so putting the question differently, what were the main challenges that you faced at the beginning? Well, in Exodus, at the beginning of this story.
Yeah, I told you almost an hour ago now that it's all started with one man. You know, it has to start with an idea. It has to start with confidence in people, and it has to start with gathering people around you step by step. And certainly I don't say that you have to go the whole period of 40 years in Portugal, but you can build rather quick a system of exodus houses, or how do you call them in prison inside houses in Portugal. If you have a community, you have a gathering of people, to a coalition of people, you know, coalition of the people I just said, Department of Justice, lawyers, representatives of the inmates, social workers, and don't forget university, you know, people with you can understand why, how, and learn what I say, learn from us, make it your own, and then I visit your country, and I'm proud to see what you are building over there.
And on a personal level, what would you say to be the most relevant challenges and learnings that you took from supporting these men and women, and well, in the end, what makes you happy about doing this work?
I must say, a lot of don't understand it, but it's a lot that makes me happy in this work. I'm very proud to do this work. I think that the most thing that makes me happy is I'm born and lived my whole life in Amsterdam, and I have 2 children, and I love Amsterdam, you know. I love my city, not only by great football champions as Ajax, but I have a wonderful city, but it has its challenges, you know. And I'm part of my beautiful Amsterdam. My children and one of them live in Amsterdam, and I'm proud that I live in Amsterdam, and I want that they live in Amsterdam with the same feeling when I'm growing up. And the society is changing. It's hard, and when you are growing older, you always say, "Well, it used to be better. It used to be better." But I'm proud that I'm a part of just a little part of trying to make the society, for myself, for my children, for my neighbors, but also for the participants, life a little bit easier, a little bit better, a little bit friendlier. Well, it's not much, but it's enough for me. I'm very privileged to do this work. I'm very privileged to do this work.
So you see this not only as a way to contribute to the restoration of ex-prisoners, but also as a way to change society. No,
it's very good. This is very important. Of course, we work with participants. Of course, we work with inmates. Of course, we work with people, with offenders. But we work for the society. We work for the community. We work for my neighbors. We work for my daughter, my son, people I don't know, but I meet in tram and buses and coaches, where I sit next to in concerts and in looking at movies. You know, it's about all of us. It's not about one. Of course, it's about an individual, but it's spread around, you know, and everybody is gaining with this kind of work. And I'm Exodus is one of the things that contributes to the total, the society, and that's what makes me proud. It's broader than just a participant who. No, it's broader than that, and I'm that's my motivation, and that should be the motivation of a lot of us. I think that makes the world a little bit better to live. And that's all. That's all we want. That's all what we want. They want it, and I want it as well.
And well, we have another question here. Can you tell me something about whether you work with plan encounters during staying in Exodus houses between victims and participants? Well, I believe this question is related to how you plan these encounters between victims and participants, and between victims and their families.
Yeah, well, that's a part of what I call recovery and restore faith, restore relation with community, restore the relations with the victim and the family, and that's very important for us. I told you about not only looking forward, but they have to look back. They have to take responsibility for their acts and their behavior, and it's one very important part of our program. And I think maybe I can make an example. It's not when we are stopped for a red traffic light, you know, most of the time, let's be honest, and it doesn't mean that you stop for the red light because the fine is there, you know, because you have to get a fine of €200. You have to stop because you know if you don't stop, you can hit somebody. Yeah. You can make a victim, and a victim is anonymous, and but it is a person, it's an individual. It is the brother, the sister, the mother, the father. It's someone. It could be your brother, it could be your partner, you know. And I think that's one of the things they have to understand, and they recognize that their behavior isn't not only because it's not allowed. The change of behavior is not because, but it's because you don't want to do that. You don't want to make a victim, and well, I think you have to. That's more or less the. You have to restore your balance with community and society, and you don't do things because you get a fine. You don't do things because you don't want to happen to another, and you don't want to happen that the other one brings it to you. It's very important. I think it's very important.
So, Jan, as I anticipated, time flew by. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation, for sharing with us your experience, your thoughts about this.
I was very honored to ask you. Thank you very much.
This is really inspiring, this customized, empowering, and I would say humane approach to recovery and reintegration. And as you mentioned, also for the contribution to society as a whole. And I would also like to take the opportunity to, on behalf of APAC Portugal, thank Instituto Miguel Gavonteles and this event's 5 sponsors, which are Delta, Rescaled Movement, Active Citizens Fund, Reshape Ceramics, and ECHO for making this possible. And last but not least, thank you all for joining. After this session, we would just ask you to spare 1 more minute to fill in a brief evaluation questionnaire that will help us continue improving this event. Just don't close the window after the session ends, and you should be automatically transferred. So goodbye to you all. Have a nice weekend, a nice week, and well, the end of the week actually. And I hope you can join again next Thursday for the season's finale.
Thank you very much, Mariana.
Thank you. It was a pleasure really to meet you, Jan.